morning. Nice to see all, everybody here this morning. This is awesome. Please stand and join me in the opening words. Welcome all you saints. Yes, you are saints. All of you are saints. For it is not by perfection that we are sainted, rather by our actions. It is not by perfection that we are sainted, rather it is by our presence. It is not by perfection that we are sainted, rather it is by our giving. It is not by perfection that we are sainted, rather it is by our living. It is not by perfection that we are sainted, rather it is by our gathering together in love, with love, to become a nurturing, welcoming, healing, and faithful worshiping community. Welcome all you saints. Please join me in singing 115, God of Grace and God of Glory. This we believe. This is a place where you're welcome, where you're invited into a fuller relationship with yourself, with the spirit of life, with other people, to build a better world, and to build a better you. Child's life statement. You light this chalice to find inner peace, love for each other, and faith in ourselves. Also to be welcoming to whomever we meet, and kind to all living creatures. So gather around this light of hope as we share this time together.
community at large. Those who protect and serve here and overseas. And for those who can't be with us here today. And this week was my brother's birthday, so I'll light one for him. So it's a candle that's only burning at one end, because normally it's burning.
This candle is for my nephew, who is going to have some surgery on his brain this week, on Friday. So just hoping that all goes well. All right, how'd you make that work?
Yeah.
All right, this isn't working. You're gonna have to come over
You
here.
gotta push that top pretty hard.
Push the top?
Yeah, push the top and then pull the trigger at the same time.
Oh,
We're gonna use this one.
Aha, okay. This one's for me.
Glad to be here today and see everybody again. Just lighting this candle in honor.
Use the other one.
Most people commonly refer to the upcoming holiday as Halloween. For some people, as you're going to, I think, learn today, this is a time of sorrow. This is a time to remember all of those that we've lost, our loved ones, both two-legged, four-legged, all of those that we loved, especially during this past year. This is a time of the veil for us to get closer to them and appreciate those that have been in our lives.
Heard my buddy pants this morning. I caught a possum on the way here. There was a sighting of Albert yesterday, so several people came to help, and we went through the woods and through the woods and through the woods, so I couldn't walk anymore. But so we set a trap last night with a blanket from a female and he. We caught a possum this morning, so I had to let the possum go. I didn't want him to stay in there, so. And this is for Ricky. He had surgery yesterday. They took off the fixator and put on a cast. He's not allowed to walk in it, but it's a lot lighter and it's easier for him to get around in. So they said maybe 2 weeks and he might get a walking cast. So hopefully, prayers that happens. Let us be in prayer. Holy One of blessing, as we gather on this All Saints' Day, let us call into our minds and hearts all those saints who blessed our lives. Those family saints, spouses and partners and mothers and fathers, grandparents, great-grandparents, sisters, brothers, aunts, uncles, and cousins. Saints who model living for us, who stay with us through the days and years and all times of need and joy, we give thanks. Those friend saints, childhood and adult friends, those young and not so young, tea time and coffee time, mealtime friends who listen and cry and laugh at us, we give thanks. Those work saints, friends, co-workers, bosses and employees, and fellow travelers. Those mentors and teachers who are with us when goals are hard to name and when trying to work with dignity and integrity seems so very hard to do, we give thanks. Those community saints, those who serve, those elected or to be elected, those educators and manufacturers and nurturers whose presence makes our daily life easier and more pleasant. And for those who toil and strive to bring a vision of justice, equality, and peace to our world, we give thanks. Those unnamed, unknown saints, those who overcome obstacles and teach us how to overcome obstacles, those whose presence remind us that we are called to do more than be what we ever thought was possible. Those who bear burdens and let us assist them in the bearing of those burdens. those who give willingly and unselfishly, those who demonstrate strength, courage, and wisdom in the face of pain and tragedy. We give thanks. Today we are called to recognize all saints. Therefore, let us learn to recognize the sainthood in all others and the sainthood in ourselves. Blessed be. That reminds me of being in New Mexico, Canada, and with the Navajo, and listening to them talk about their ancestors who live in the rocks and who live in the mountains and the trees that surround them at all times. May we know once again that we are not isolated beings but connected in mystery and miracle to the universe, to this community, to each other. May we now have our offering.
In love we know and share, in love and beauty everywhere. Rejoice in truth that makes us free, and in the good that yet shall be. Amen.
Please join in singing number 114, Forward Through the Ages.
music is mysteriously gone. I'm sorry. It was there this morning.
Okay, girls, a children's message. See, this is called The Dead Family Diaz. You got that book? You want to read it? You like it? Okay, good. Morning came as the dead sun chased off the dead moon. All across the land of the dead, everyone's spirits were high. Rise and shine, sleepy skulls, Mrs. Diaz called. Breakfast is getting cold. Yay, cheered Estrella. Yum. Angelito looked at his plate miserably. Today was the day of the dead, but his family would walk among the living, and Angelito was feeling scared. Did I tell you how the living have big red tongues and bulging eyes? His sister jabbered, and if you touch one, they feel all hot and squishy. Ew, gasped Angelito, turning whiter than ever. Mrs. Diaz hushed her daughter. The living are our friends, she said, and this is the one time each year everyone gets together to celebrate. But were they really hot and squishy? Angelito listened and bored to his sister's stories about Halloween, when the living put out fiery-eyed pumpkins to scare the dead away. Except it never works, cracked Estella. The Day of the Dead is nothing like Halloween, Angelito's father insisted. Now eat up, we don't want to be late. Angelito fed his breakfast to Dante, while Estrella chomped away. Finally, the family piled into the car. I told you we should have left earlier, Mr. Diaz grumbled. Look at this traffic. Nearby, a large crowd was waiting for the elevator to go to the land of the living. The dead were getting restless. You know they have to take an elevator to come see us? No. Quit pushing, numbskull. Tell it to the zombies at the back. Jostled and shoved, the Diaz family squeezed into a packed elevator. Up and up they went until, ding, the doors finally opened. Welcome to the land of the living, a booming voice shouted. Pushed into the bright world beyond, Angelito froze. Where were his parents? Shouting people, chiming bells, and blaring music drowned out his calls. He darted through the crowd searching, but his family was nowhere to be found. Finally, Angelito arrived at a quiet square. Spotting a friend-looking skull, he asked, "You didn't see a man and a woman and a bone-headed girl wearing too much jaw gloss pass by, did you?" Jaw gloss. The boy laughed but shook his head. Angelito began to slip away. "I'm Pablo, by the way," the boy called. "Did you happen to see any of them yet?" Them? He means the living, Angelito thought. He told Pablo all about the terrible shouting he heard near the elevators. "They must be getting ready to attack," whispered Pablo. "Let's get out of here." Behind a fruit and vegetable stand where Angelito came up with a plan. They tip over boxes of cherries so their enemies would slip. "And then we could finish them off with these," Pablo suggested, handing over a few tomatoes. Before long, they heard an angry mob approaching. "Get ready," whispered Angelito. "Aim! Wait! Hold your fire!" cried Pablo.
He can't eat.
You don't think ghosts can eat tomatoes?
If you eat them, it's going down.
It wasn't a mob at all, but a parade full of banging drums and blasting trumpets. Still, Pablo warned that some of them might be hiding in it. "Maybe we should keep our masks on just in case." "Masks?" laughed the skeleton boy. "What mask?" "These ones, silly," said Pablo, reaching for Angelito's face. "Hey, you're as cold as a popsicle," he squealed. "And you've got bulging eyes," cried Angelito. "Ah, you're one of them," they both shouted. Out of breath, Angelito took off, tearing down streets and alleyways without looking back. Had he really been playing with a living boy the whole time? How freaky, he shuddered. How icky, how awful. But how incredibly funny, he had to admit. Except now he was alone again. Feeling glum, Angelito wandered around the deserted town until he found himself at the cemetery gates. Inside, a big party was going on. There was a loud bark. "Dante!" Angelito cried, rushing over to his family. Do you like to go to cemeteries? You like to go to cemeteries? You like to go to cemeteries?
No. But I can go to cemeteries of a wedding.
Of a wedding? They have weddings in cemeteries sometimes? Or a funeral? But not by yourself?
No. For our evacuation drill at our school, like whenever somebody or somebody or someone who's trying to break in or something or tries to hurt our school, we have to go and run behind the cemetery.
Do you run really fast?
Well, we have our practice.
Oh,
I have a lot of hands.
you did.
I have lived in a cemetery.
You live by a cemetery?
No,
Do you play in there?
you only get a playground.
Oh, playground, okay. Mrs. Diaz squeezed her son so tightly he thought he might crack. Angelina told them how he'd gotten lost and had been looking for them all day. "We're just glad you're safe," sighed his father. "Now let's get to the buffet. I'm ready to stuff my rib cage." Estrella slid up to her brother. "Oh, I bet you were so scared," she whispered gleefully, "all alone in the land of the living." "Actually, I wasn't alone," Angelito said. And then, spotting a familiar face, the dead boy discovered he didn't need guts to be brave. "Hey, Pablo, wait up," Angelito called. The living boy turned. Then a big smile crossed his face. "Sorry for saying you had bulging eyes," said Angelito. "Sorry for calling you a popsicle," Pablo replied. "So we're cool again?" Angelito asked, grinning a big skeleton grin. Pablo winked. "Cool as your bones." Angelito told Pablo all the things Estrella had said to him to make him scared of the living. "She's okay mostly," he admitted, "but sometimes she can be a real knucklebone." "Maybe she just needs to meet a real living boy up close," Pablo said. Ah! The dead moon had already chased off the dead sun by the time the dead Diaz family returned home. Bone tired, Angelito headed to bed where he dreamed sweet dreams. The Day of the Dead is a holiday celebrated in Mexico on November 1st, but it is believed that the spirits of the dead return to visit the living. Though it is always sad when people die, the Day of the Dead is a happy holiday, a time for people to remember and appreciate friends and relatives who have passed on. The day is full of singing and dancing and feasting. Special displays known as altars are made to welcome those beloved souls into the homes of their living family, with food laid out for the spirits to enjoy when they visit. What do you think about that?
I think it's good.
You like that? You like that? Okay. Hold on one second. Let's stay right there for one second. Hey, what do you guys say when you go trick-or-treating?
Trick or treat.
Oh, okay, now you're supposed to thank you. Well, then you don't need yours.
I found you.
Okay, now we'll listen to the special music, Sawan music.
To Mexico.
some doubters even in the western villages. One woman told me last Christmas that she did not believe either in hell or in ghosts. Hell, she thought, was merely an invention got up by the priests to keep people good. And ghosts would not be permitted, she held, to go transplanting around the earth at their own free will. But there are fairies, she added, and little leprechauns and water horses and fallen angels. I have met also a man with a Mohawk Indian tattoo upon his arm who held exactly similar beliefs and unbeliefs. No matter what one doubts, one never doubts the fairies, for as the man with the Mohawk Indian on his arm said to me, they stand to reason. Even the official mind does not escape this fate. A little girl who was at service in the village of Grange, close under the seaward slopes of Ben Bolden, suddenly disappeared one night about 3 years ago. There was at once great excitement in the neighborhood because it was rumored that the fairies had taken her. A villager was said to have long struggled to hold her for them, but at last they prevailed and he found nothing in his hands but a broomstick. The local constable was applied to, and he at once instituted a house-to-house search, and at the same time advised the people to burn all the ragweed on the field that she vanished from because ragweed scared the fairies. They spent the whole night burning them, the constable repeating spells the while. In the morning the little girl was found, the story goes, wandering in the field. She said the fairies had taken her away a great distance, riding on a fairy horse. At last she saw a big river, and the man who had tried to keep it from being carried off was drifting down it, such as the topsy-turvydoms of fairy glamour in a cockle shell. On the way, her companions had mentioned the names of several people who were about to die shortly in the village. Perhaps the constable was right. It is better, doubtless, to believe much unreason and a little truth than to deny for denial's sake truth and unreason alike. For when we do this, we have not even a rush candle to guide our steps, not even a poor swallow to dance before us on the march, and must needs fumble our ways into the great emptiness where dwell the misshapen duels. And after all, can we come to such a great evil if we keep a little fire in our hearts and in our souls, and welcome with open hand whatever of excellent come to warm itself? Whether it be a man or phantom, and do not say too fiercely, even to the ghouls themselves, be ye gone? When all is said and done, how do we not know but that our own unreason may be better than another's truth? For it has been worn on our hearth and in our souls, and it is ready for the wild bees of truth to hive in it and make their sweet honey. Come into the world again, wild bees, wild bees. My sermon this morning is related to Halloween and the Celtic celebration of Samhain that predates and shaped our modern Halloween. The word pagan comes from the Latin word paganus, meaning of the countryside. During the late Roman Empire, as new religions like Mithraism and Christianity gained adherents, people in the countryside, being more conservative, held on to the worship of the old gods. That is not unlikely today, where people in the rural areas are more likely to hold on to a conservative view of Christianity, while people in urban areas are more open to other religions or to secularism. The word pagan, as used by the monotheistic religions of Judaism, Christianity, and Islam, is applied to any religion other than a monotheistic one. That clumps together a wide variety of religious movements. Because this is a Halloween-related sermon, I will be concentrating on the Western European religion of the Celts, but will also refer to a broader sense of paganism as well. As Christianity spread, what it could not suppress of other religions, it attempted to absorb and sanctify to itself. So, for example, December 25th was selected as the birthday of Jesus because it was the birthday both of the Roman god Sol, Invictus, and the god Mithra, whose cult was the greatest competitor with Christianity during the late Roman Empire. In the Celtic tradition that gave us Halloween, about which we actually know very little, there seems to be differing ideas about death and afterlife. Julius Caesar reported that the Celts believed in transmigration of souls, but the oral and ritual traditions, the old bones of the ancient religion, indicate that there was a belief in a separate plane of existence, and at the same time, a belief in an underworld that seems to be similar to that of the ancient Semitic peoples, the Sheol of the Bible, or the Hades of the ancient Greeks. In both of these underworlds, the dead had an existence of great dreariness, eating dust. Whether the two Celtic ideas of transmigration of souls to underworld and the other plane represent different traditions within the Celtic world or were held in tension within individuals, I do not know. Samhain, the Celtic New Year festival, was the time when the veil between this world and the other world was at its most fragile. Some scholars say that the beings on the other side of the veil, including the dead, could come through to this side, and some scholars say it was the time when the dead of the past year traveled to the other side of the veil. In either case, the dead visited their old homes and were treated to warm fires, food, and fresh sheets on their beds. The church could not suppress this festival, so it tamed it, by first naming November 1st as All Saints' Day, with the night before being called All Hallows' Eve, to honor all those saints that did not have their own festival dates. All Hallows' Eve became Hallow Evening and later Halloween. Honoring the saints did not fulfill the needs of people to honor their own dead. And so the church later created All Souls' Day on November 2nd, which was intended to absorb to itself and so Christianize the honoring of the family dead. And the Reform movement today, October 31st, is Reformation Day in honor of the date that Martin Luther nailed his treatise to the church door. Yet none of these attempts to Christianize Samhain fully worked. The old pagan spirit continues to break through and Samhain persists in modified form. Halloween has been through many cycles and changes over the years. Banned or celebrated large or small. It is possible, and some scholars think probable, that one reason for the long-lasting popularity of Guy Fawkes Day in England, with its bonfires and celebrations, including kids asking for pennies for the guy on November 5th, is that people initially transferred some of the old Samhain fervor to it. Why does the pagan spirit of this time of year persist despite the efforts to destroy or transform it? I think there are a number of reasons. One has to do with the changes of the season at our latitudes. Halloween is an autumn festival. Were we in Brazil, we may not be as drawn to it. In fact, Halloween is not really celebrated in Australia. Google Australian Halloween and several sites will tell you that Australian Halloween takes place on Guy Fawkes Day. But for us, this time of year is the time of dying leaves and plants. It's the time of shorter days, of darkness closing in around us, seeming at times almost to be a living thing encircling our world. The cycle of the year serves as a reminder of the cycle of life. Spring is the bouncing, exuberant stage of infancy, childhood and youth, when every day is different with full discovery of new ideas, of new visions. Summer is the steady stage of adulthood, where there is a slower pace of change, a steadier flow of time, and being when we find and do the work of our life and become the guides of the new young. Early autumn as the time of retirement, change of status, and old responsibilities are put down and new stages of creativity and existence come into being. Late autumn as old age when things begin to fade, when loss is more common, loss of ability or of friends who pass on. And winter as the time of death. When all is done is peace and rest, but also at the time when new life begins to stir beneath the frozen ground, new life that may result in new birth, even rebirth. This cycle of life tied to the cycle of the earth becomes a metaphor for the cycle of the spirit, of spiritual growth and development. There is little in this that the Christian church would seem to find objectionable, except that the monotheistic religions reject the idea of cycles in time and reject the idea of rebirth in this world. The pagan concept, as tied to the seasons of the earth, is one of time cycling around in a never-ending pattern. Plants grow and die and grow again with the seasons. The monotheistic concept, the Zoroastrian, Judaic, Christian, and Islamic concept, is of linear time. We live this life and die, and then there is Judgment Day. We live this life, and how are we to have lived this life is how we will be judged, whether on the basis of work, knowledge, or faith, or all of these. The monotheistic concept of time is that of one life and of a choice to be made either for God or against God, and therefore struggle against life recycling paganism. Not all paganism saw time as a cylindrical in nature, and as I have said, the Celtic tradition seems mixed on this, but clearly the idea was present within the Celtic world. At a Catholic memorial service recently, someone said to the members of the family, "I just know that your brother is looking down on you, smiling and wishing you peace and comfort." And that is a common expression of belief or hope expressed at many services and in many private conversations. It is, however, not Christian doctrine. In Christian theology, the dead will remain dead until the day of resurrection, the day of judgment. At that time, decisions will be handed down about whether, according to various Christian traditions, one is going to heaven or hell or purgatory or to a second death. But right now, in Christian theology, aside from a small number of individuals named in the Bible, heaven and hell are both empty. The souls of the dead are asleep, and so there is no room in Christian doctrine for ghosts or spirits, so none can be trapped in this world or on this plane of existence. And the idea that our loved ones can look down on us, watch over us, be present to us as guides or comforts, comes from the pagan tradition, not the Christian. But the comforting aspect of this pagan belief is so powerful that it overrides formal theologies. The spiritual meaning that I draw from Celtic paganism is severalfold. I do read the cycle of the seasons as a metaphor for the cycles of human life. Within the Celtic tradition, that includes the possibility of rebirth in another body. For me, the truth is more one of being a part of the cycle, living briefly, and then being reabsorbed into a warm light to remain in that sense part of the ongoing cycle of birth, death, and rebirth, feeding future life. I am the stage of life equivalent, I suppose, to early autumn, time of retirement, and change of status, as old responsibilities are put down and new stages of creativity and existence come into being. I have noticed that the first leaves begin to show autumn colors of yellow, red, and orange as early as August, and I see myself within, as well as the first hints of change leading to winter. When losses do come, when loved ones pass away, and such losses come now more frequently than they used to, it is appropriate to mourn and grieve, but also to note that it is the season of life for loss. As a child and a young man, I thought little of death except for those occasions when it broke through surprisingly and unexpectedly. In this season of the year, as the beauty of the trees bursts in grandeur all around us, it is right to remember that death is, and it is a part of life's great pattern, and that the time preceding death can be full of life's greatest beauty. And in the weeks to come, as the darkness of autumn closes in, and that darkness which brought fear to our forebears, we are reminded of the darkness into which some of our loved ones have already passed, and which will ultimately envelop us all as well. The pagan tradition has lived on because our hearts long to reach out to our loved ones, to touch them again, to be touched by them, to catch a word, to see a smile, a nod, or a wink. We wish in the depths of our hearts to know that they are well beyond in the grave, and to know that somehow they can be present to us, or at least can sense our presence near them. We want them a continued sense of love and happiness. And so human beings bring flowers or food to grave sites, bring offerings to groves or temples, and speak to headstones or thin air, all to contact once again one with whom we shared some part of life. We seek to break the darkness into which they have fallen, though so often we also seek to make it a darkness of quiet comfort, as we know that the same awaits us. Whether we individually envision that darkness at the end of our existence as the sleep from which we will arise to heaven, or as the womb of new birth in a new body, when it does come, may it come at a time when we feel we have done life's work. May it fall as gently as the leaves of autumn, and may it be as welcome as a warm fire on a cold winter's eve. And may we draw from the pagan traditions of the world that the hope and belief that in some way we live on in the world we leave behind, if only in the memory of others. And while yet alive, may we keep warm the hearth in our mind and in our souls, and may the best part of our unreason, the openness to all wonder, live within us. So let it be. Please join me in the responsive reading on page 721. We can stay seated. In the struggles we choose for ourselves, in the ways we move forward in our lives and bring our world forward with us,
It is right to remember the names of those who gave us strength in this choice of living. It is right to name the power of hard lives well lived.
we share a history with those lives. We belong to the same motion.
They too were strengthened by what had gone before. They too were drawn on by the vision of what might come to be.
Those who lived before us, who struggled for justice and suffered injustice before us, have not melted into the dust and have not disappeared.
They are still. The lives they lived hold us steady.
Their words remind us and call us back to ourselves. Their courage and love evoke our own. We, the living, carry them with us, and we are their voices, their hands, and their hearts.
We take them with us, and with them choose the deeper path of living.
We will now name those who lend strength in our lives. I will start with remembering my brother. His birthday was Friday, but he committed suicide at the age of 49 a year ago. But on his birthday, I remember him and how fun it was together. He was 6 years younger than me, so I helped take care of him. I also remember my father, who I strived all my life to be like. He was a warehouse supervisor at Goodyear. And before the company I was with 22 years went out of business, I was the warehouse supervisor because I wanted to be like my dad and have the same job as him. So I remember him as well. Anybody else would like to share?
I see Mom brought a picture of Grandma, so this is a picture of my grandfather. So, Polaroids are wonderful things, but it's sad that they're only one of them. So you can never, you can take a picture and share it, but it's. I got my name from. I'm named after both of my grandfathers. Their middle names. This is Robert Glenn Easterday. So. And then my other grandfather is Thomas Cameron Cranston, so I'm Glenn Cameron. So it's a little piece of him. I like to think all the things I've learned to do mechanically is what my grandfather Easterday told me, and still lives with me.
On the flip side of that, my mother's picture and my father's trophies. My father was a chronic overachiever. He had a trophy for everything. Horseshoe pitching, golf, bowling. He was just a master at everything he did. My mother had a career before she had a family. This picture of her was from her cosmetology license. It's the only glamour shot she ever had. And she was a domestic goddess. She was the most terrific mother a woman could have, but as a girl, I didn't think she was the greatest mother. But I really am quite proud of my family, and I know that you've seen pictures of them, but now you see a piece of their action. And I also want to say hello to Gigi from Riley.
Sergio's not coming up, but this is a picture of his grandmother and your aunt.
Yeah.
Very beautiful. I didn't get to know them except for in the last years, but great people. And this is my brother. November 24th. It'll be 2 years since he passed. And he was a great man. Very caring, very loving. We miss him very much.
Thank goodness Bob brought a picture, because I was like a dingbat this morning until he forgot one. This is a picture of my son, and he committed suicide at age 27, correction, 28. But the amazing thing is, there are times when I can sense him around me, and it really reinforces for me that when this body gives out, that is not the end of it. Usually what happens is, Kevin, me and my kids kind of had a weird relationship because we did a lot of joking around and laughing and being silly and, that kind of stuff. And Kevin and I used to just absolutely laugh about things. I mean, we were just silly. One time, this will show you how immature I can be. He was, I forget what he was teasing me about, but it was, something that I was like, oh. So I told him, I said, listen, you bozo, next time I see you, I'm going to give you a wedgie. And so I did. And he was like 25. And he was laughing too. So there are times when something silly will happen, and I can hear him laughing like he is standing right next to me. It is absolutely unbelievable. And I know that he is okay, that he's just in another place, and that, yes, I am going to see my youngest child again.
I'll talk about my neighbor, Dante. I can't. Funny to know a neighbor that was more like a father. I mean, a real friend. And he was just a super guy. He passed away a little over a year ago with cancer. And really tragic because the people that knew him, they didn't know what he was dealing with when he passed. They all said, you know, I had no idea, you know, that he was ill, that he had any problems, and that's because of the type of person he was. He wasn't about looking for sympathy or telling people, hey, I've got this disease, I've got cancer, whatever, so people never knew. So I miss him, especially now. He was just a wonderful human being, great character. I learned a lot from him. And I just can't say enough about the gentleman. He was one of those people that touch your life that you really aspire to know.
Please stand and join in singing number 103. The larger circle of all creatures passing in and out of life, who move also in a dance to a music so subtle and vast that no one hears it except in fragments. Please be seated.